the young and the restless spoilers for years, the fragile state of Amy's health had been the undercurrent of tension in the lives of those who cared for her, leaving fans and family alike perpetually anxious over every setback. Yet, in the grand tapestry of fate, death remains an unavoidable destiny, an inevitable truth that looms over every moment of life. The burning questions were not simply about the certainty of her passing, but rather about the when and the how. How would her final moments unfold, and what revelations would accompany the end of her long, troubled life? The mystery deepened when Nate, a man whose life had been shrouded in uncertainties and half-truths, began to suspect that Amy might be more than just a distant figure in his life. When whispers of a biological connection reached his ears, questions cascaded through his mind. Could it be that Amy was, in fact, his true mother? This revelation, fraught with complications and emotional turmoil, shook Nate to his core. The thought of reuniting with a mother he had never truly known was as terrifying as it was exhilarating, an enigma wrapped in the uncertainty of familial bonds and shattered expectations. Amidst this turbulent personal revelation, two enigmatic figures, Hold'em and Damien, hovered in the background, their presence as constant as it was cryptic. Known for their unpredictable nature and the uncanny ability to switch allegiances like one might change a suit in a deck of cards, they were the embodiment of mystery. Their roles in the unfolding drama remained unclear, as if they held the keys to secrets that could upend the established order of the Winters family at any moment. Whispers in the corridors of power hinted that either could change the course of events in a heartbeat, leaving everyone to wonder if their next move might shatter the delicate balance of loyalties once and for all. As fate would have it, Amy's deteriorating condition soon reached a point where the unthinkable became imminent. The day came when her fragile body could no longer fight the relentless march of time and illness. Her death, when it finally arrived, was like a sudden, catastrophic event that sent shockwaves through Nate's world. For him, the revelation of Amy as his biological mother had been a bittersweet discovery, a glimmer of truth amid the chaos of his identity. Now, confronted with the finality of her absence, Nate was plunged into a state of panic and despair. In that heart-wrenching moment, he found himself grappling with an overwhelming sense of loss, unsure of where to turn or how to rebuild his life in the wake of such profound grief. Amy's life had been a mosaic of unspoken words and missed opportunities. Despite the years that had passed, she had never engaged in an official, heartfelt conversation with her son, a dialogue that might have bridged the gap between them. Yet, in her final hours, as the weight of her mortality bore down on her, Amy came to a poignant realization. In the quiet solitude of her final moments, she understood the true extent of Nate's love, a love that had been quietly nurturing him, even from afar. It was a bittersweet acknowledgement, one that resonated deeply within her heart, knowing that despite the years of silence and distance, the bond between them had never truly been broken. Meanwhile, in the intricate web of family dynamics, Damien found himself confronting a disquieting truth. Never fully aware of his standing within the family hierarchy, he had always assumed his role as a member of the Winters clan. However, as the events unfolded, it became painfully clear that he was more of a peripheral figure, a ghost in the background, left behind as the family's central narrative took shape around the shocking revelations of Amy's legacy. Damien's sense of betrayal was not directed at the loss of familial ties, but rather at the realization that he had been rendered an outsider in the very drama he had believed he was an integral part of. Despite his inner, as the days turned to weeks, and weeks to months, the echoes of Amy's final moments reverberated through the lives of those she had touched. Her passing became a catalyst for change, a somber reminder that the truth, no matter how painful, was a necessary step toward healing. Nate, emboldened by the memory of a love that had transcended the barriers of time and silence, began to gather the fragments of his shattered identity. With every step he took, he found strength in the love he knew was real, a love that had been quietly nurtured in the shadows of uncertainty and loss. In this new chapter of the Winters saga, the surviving members of the family were faced with difficult questions about loyalty, identity, and the true meaning of belonging. Amid the swirling uncertainties and lingering suspicions surrounding Hold'em and Damien's roles, one thing was unequivocally clear: Amy's death had irrevocably altered the course of their lives. For Nate, The journey toward overcoming his mother's death was not merely a process of mourning, it was an odyssey of self-discovery, a painful but necessary pilgrimage toward understanding who he was and who he might become in the absence of the woman who had been his hidden anchor. As he looked to the horizon, Nate resolved to honor Amy's memory by seeking the truth about his past and by embracing the love that had been his birthright. The path ahead was fraught with challenges, but within the heartache lay the promise of renewal, a chance to rebuild the broken bonds and to forge a future where the legacy of Amy's love could live on. In time, Nate hoped that the mysteries of his lineage and the enigma of his family's secret past would yield to the light of truth, allowing him to finally lay his burdens to rest and to step boldly into the future, carrying with him the indelible imprint of a mother's love, even in death. Nate stood in the somber twilight outside the mausoleum, the chill of the evening air mingling with the icy grip of grief and fury. The funeral of Amy, a day he had never imagined would be marred by such darkness, loomed before him, a final farewell to the woman who, despite the enigma of their bond, had come to mean so much. In that moment of hushed mourning, Nate's heart burned with a promise, a vow made in the silence of Amy's final hours. He had sworn to avenge her, to make Damien and Hold'em pay for the pain they inflicted upon her in her last moments. Amy's suffering had not been in vain, Nate thought bitterly. Every ounce of agony she endured would be repaid through his relentless pursuit of justice. The memory of her frail form, the haunted look in her eyes, and the whispered pleas that he could barely catch, now fueled his resolve. They had left her broken and vulnerable, and in return, he vowed to shatter the lives of those who had tormented her. Yet, even as Nate steeled himself for the inevitable confrontation with his enemies, another specter of betrayal lingered in his mind, Audra. The whispers in the corridors, the furtive glances, and the clandestine meetings had not escaped his notice. It was no secret that Audra had been meeting with Hold'em and Damien behind his back. But why? What secret alliance had she forged with these elusive figures? The questions gnawed at him, intensifying his suspicion. Although she maintained an outwardly calm demeanor during family gatherings, Nate knew all too well that her smiles were masks concealing hidden agendas. Determined to uncover the truth, Nate resolved that after the funeral, he would launch an investigation into Audra's alliances and the mysterious network of allies that she had cultivated. Every whispered conversation, every coded message, every secret rendezvous would be pieced together like fragments of a shattered mirror, revealing a picture of betrayal that went deeper than he had ever imagined. It was not just a personal vendetta he was pursuing, it was the truth about the intricate web of alliances that had conspired against his mother, Amy, and threatened to destabilize everything Nate once held dear. But amid these turbulent plans of retribution and revelation, a profound uncertainty still plagued him, a doubt that he could neither shake off nor fully confront. The revelation that Amy might have been his mother had arrived too swiftly, too shrouded in mystery for him to accept with complete certainty. In the whirlwind of events, the hurried confessions, the whispered insinuations, and the chaotic surge of emotions following her death, everything had become a blur. Now, as he grappled with the finality of Amy's passing, Nate was tormented by the thought that he might never know the full truth. With Amy gone, the chance to verify her DNA, to dispel the lingering shadows of doubt once and for all, had vanished like smoke in the wind. The funeral itself was a bitter affair. Family members, friends, and those whose loyalty had been in question gathered under a sky heavy with unspoken accusations. Nate carried the weight of his mother's legacy and the unresolved mystery of her identity on his shoulders. Every eulogy, every tear, and every quiet moment of reflection was tinged with the knowledge that nothing about her death was straightforward. It was as if the very circumstances of her demise had been orchestrated, a final act of cruelty by those who sought power over her life and, by extension, over the lives of those connected to her. As the ceremony drew to a close, Nate's mind raced with plans for what was to come. His eyes, cold and determined, scanned the crowd for any sign of collusion or betrayal. The faces that had once offered comfort now appeared as potential conspirators in a plot that extended far beyond the loss of a beloved figure. Every furtive glance, every whispered conversation in the shadows, was now a clue in a puzzle he was desperate to solve. Audra's secretive meetings with Hold'em and Damien were the most disturbing of all. He recalled the moments when he had seen her slip away to a secluded corner of the estate, only to return with an air of uncharacteristic composure. She had been careful, meticulous, and undeniably complicit. Nate's resolve hardened. He would delve into her affairs, uncover every hidden alliance, and expose the true extent of the betrayal that had cost his mother her last breath of life. Yet, even as he plotted his next moves, Nate could not ignore the nagging uncertainty about his own identity. The discovery of Amy's potential role as his mother was a revelation that had shattered the foundation of his self-belief. In the chaos of her final days, there had been no time for heartfelt conversations, no opportunity for a mother to impart the wisdom of a lifetime to her son. The verification of her DNA, the tangible proof that could either cement or dispel the swirling doubts, was now forever beyond reach. The rapidity and obscurity with which events had unfolded left him clinging to fragments of memory and rumor, unsure of what was real and what was mere fabrication. In the quiet solitude of his private study, surrounded by mementos of a life that now seemed filled with unanswered questions, Nate resolved that his next steps would be as deliberate as they were ruthless. The investigation into Audra's covert collaboration would begin at once. He would interrogate her allies, sift through correspondence, and track down every clue that might lead him to the truth behind her clandestine meetings. Each discovery would bring him closer to understanding the forces that had conspired against Amy, and by extension, against him. At the same time, his promise to Amy echoed in his ears, a solemn vow to exact revenge on Damien and Hold'em. He recalled the moment he had whispered his promise in the final, fading moments of her life, a promise fueled by love, loss, and a burning desire for justice. Now, with that promise still vivid in his mind, Nate felt the dual pull of grief and retribution. His path was clear. He would dismantle the network of deceit that had enveloped his family, and he would do so with a cold, unyielding determination. The interplay of loss, betrayal, and mystery had set in motion a chain of events that threatened to upend the very structure of the family Nate had known. As he prepared to step into a future defined by vengeance and the relentless search for truth, one question remained: could he ever reconcile the fragments of his shattered past with the uncertain promise of a future defined by justice? The answers were elusive, hidden in the labyrinthine corridors of loyalty and deceit. With the funeral concluded and the echoes of mourning still resonating in the silent halls of the estate, Nate took his first resolute steps toward the next phase of his journey. The path ahead was fraught with peril and uncertainty, a path that would lead him into the darkest recesses of familial betrayal and the murky depths of personal identity. Yet, driven by the twin forces of a promise to his mother and a desperate need for truth, Nate was determined to forge ahead, no matter the cost. In the days that followed, as he began the painstaking process of unraveling Audra's secret meetings and the hidden alliances that threatened to dismantle everything he held dear, Nate found himself caught between the desire for vengeance and the need for closure. Every revelation, every piece of evidence, only deepened the mystery of Amy's life and death. And as he navigated this treacherous terrain, one thing became abundantly clear: in a world where loyalties were as fragile as glass and truths as elusive as shadows, the only certainty was that his journey for justice had only just begun. In the winding corridors of a city where passion and rivalry intertwined like the threads of an ancient tapestry, two forces were destined to collide over the heart of one remarkable woman. Sally, a woman of grace and determination, found herself at the center of a tumultuous love triangle. Though her heart longed for genuine connection, the path to true love had become an arena of clashing wills and conflicting ambitions. On one side stood Billy, whose fierce devotion to Sally had grown from a bond of shared dreams and mutual respect. On the other, there was Daniel, a man who had thrown himself into every possible effort to unlock the secret chambers of Sally's heart. Yet, despite Daniel's relentless persistence, the delicate equilibrium between Sally and Billy remained precarious, a constant reminder that not all battles are won by force alone. For months, Sally and Billy had been locked in a silent struggle to find common ground. Their relationship, though rooted in deep affection, was constantly tested by differences in temperament and life goals. Billy, with his open and protective nature, had always been the one to stand by Sally's side, offering her comfort and reassurance in times of uncertainty. He recognized the perils that lurked around every corner in their complicated lives and vowed to guard the love that had blossomed between them. His eyes, ever watchful and filled with a quiet intensity, betrayed his unwavering commitment, a commitment that would be tested as never before in the days to come. Across the divide, Daniel's ambition burned with an almost obsessive fervor. Determined to carve a niche for himself in Sally's heart, he embarked on a journey to learn every nuance of her desires and fears. Daniel's approach was methodical, his strategies carefully planned out like moves in a high-stakes chess game. He attended every event where Sally might be found, listened intently to the stories she shared with friends, and even took to mirroring her tastes in music and art, all in the hope of capturing her attention. His relentless pursuit was more than a simple infatuation. It was a calculated campaign to assert himself as the man who could provide Sally with the protection and understanding that she so desperately craved. Yet, Daniel's methods were not without consequences. His actions soon began to cast long shadows over the fragile relationship between Sally and Billy. What started as subtle hints of interference soon escalated into overt challenges. Daniel was not content with merely being a bystander. He was determined to teach Billy a lesson that he believed would ultimately prove his own worthiness. With every encounter, Daniel sought to expose what he considered Billy's shortcomings. His words, often wrapped in layers of condescension, were meant to undermine Billy's credibility and plant seeds of doubt in Sally's mind about the stability of her current relationship. Billy, however, was not a man easily shaken. Having sensed the brewing storm, he remained resolute. The danger that Daniel's interventions posed was all too real, and Billy was determined to protect not only his own love for Sally but also the sanctity of the bond they had nurtured over time. "I must safeguard the love we share," he would often murmur to himself, a mantra that reminded him of the stakes involved. For Billy, the looming confrontation was inevitable, a collision of ideals and emotions where only one truth could prevail. As tensions escalated, the atmosphere around Sally became charged with anticipation. Every whispered conversation and stolen glance between Daniel and Billy carried the weight of unspoken challenges. In one particularly charged encounter, the two men found themselves face to face in the quiet recesses of a dimly lit cafe. A setting that, despite its intimate ambience, became the stage for an explosive exchange of words. Daniel's eyes, sharp with determination, locked onto Billy's steady gaze. "You think your love is unassailable," Daniel sneered, his voice low and measured, "but I'm here to show you that sometimes protection comes in many forms. Sally deserves someone who is willing to fight for her, to challenge the status quo and push her beyond the confines of complacency."